Is Sarr the best player from his draft class already? And will he be the best in the future? Where do the Rooks rank for the Wizards in an NBA redraft? Coming up next on Locked On Wizards.
You are Locked On Wizards, your daily Washington Wizards podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello and welcome into a Friday edition of Locked On Wizards, where myself and Abdullah Ayubi redraft the 2024 NBA draft class and explain where the Wizards' young pups land in a redraft. Alex Sarr, Kyshawn George, Bub Carrington, maybe even a touch on AJ Johnson. I'm Leif Thulin, a credentialed NBA draft analyst, attendee of the last two NBA combines, host of Locked On NBA Big Board, and beside me is Abdullah Ayubi, diehard Wizards fan, here to provide you hometown insights and passion for his beloved Wizards and expertise when ranking these guys, having seen them play each and every game last season and providing expectations for what's to come for the youthful Wizards core. Thanks for making Locked On Wizards your first listen each and every day. And remember, Locked On Wizards is free and available on all platforms, including YouTube at Locked On Wizards, where the best way to help us grow is to comment anything below. And today's question is, where would you rank the three rookies, the three that Washington drafted? That's Alex Sarr, Bub Carrington, and Kyshawn George. And I'm curious, are all of them ranked higher than where they were drafted in the draft? So today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's a no-brainer. So sign up for FanDuel and try that out. And let's dive right into this, Abdullah. We talked about this at the start, that the Wizards hit on all their draft picks. Hitting on the draft picks is different than hitting home runs. It's getting a good player that can play a role. But the Wizards may have hit home runs, because I redid my draft. I did a redraft, and I'll ask you a simple question. Did the Wizards draft the best rookie? I know they have the second pick, so it's not the craziest thing ever, but do they have the best rookie in the NBA right now?
Yeah, so it's kind of funny because we talked about, like, can they go higher? There's only one spot higher for Sarr. I think in a couple of years, he's going to be that guy that after redrafting this class, he's going to be the number one guy. I know you're really high on Stephon Castle, and, I mean, he's a 6'6" guard who can pass it and got better as well. And playing with Victor Wembanyama is definitely going to help him out in his NBA career. But I think Alex Sarr, the way his tenure started in Washington, after 5 summer league games late, people were calling him a bust, saying that he was trash, and he got better throughout the season. And I think that's what's so important about his development. A 7-footer coming from the Australian league. Not many people are realizing it's an adjustment going from the Australian league to the NBA. It's a whole different ballgame. And he got better. He got more aggressive. That career high game 34 against Nikola Jokic, against one of the most greatest centers of all time in NBA history, going in Denver and beating them. I get it. You're still a losing team that 18 wins, but still he got better. And that's what really matters. I think his playmaking abilities as a 7-footer with his frame is something to look out for in these next couple of years. And again, you pair him up with the young guys that you have, so he's only going to get better. And I think his upside is that top 5, top 7 center in this league, a two-way center who is an offensive beast. He can be more aggressive. And I think that's what he definitely is going to have to be. Defensively, a rim protector. One thing I will say that he needs to work on is being more aggressive. 7-foot frame, has to be averaging at least 10 rebounds a game. And I think also he's at times ball watches. But again, young guy, 19, 20 years old. He's so freaking young. I mean, so long here in Washington, we haven't had that center, the athletic beast. And I think Alex Sarr can be that guy. And I think between him and Reece Lachey, I think Sarr is the better player. And I think a big reason why Washington did get him, because I mean, Sarr made it obvious that he didn't want to go to Atlanta and deal with that situation. He realized that Washington desperately needed a center. And I think Alex Sarr in a couple of years will be that. And I know Stephon Castle is talented. And he played in that loaded UConn team. And again, like I mentioned, you're high on him. But I think in a couple of years, I think Sarr is going to be the clear-cut number one guy, and he should have gone number one in Atlanta.
See, I think you made a really good distinction there, that Sarr probably should have been the number one pick at Atlanta had he not enjoyed the idea of playing in that kind of turmoil that the Hawks were operating within. They had Onyeka Okongwu at the time. You have Clint Capella sopping up minutes. You have other guys, Jalen Johnson playing the 4. Sarr wants to play the 4 at times and has the versatility to play the 4 and the 5. It wasn't a good situation. But people lose sight of that and say, oh, well, he went number 2 for a reason. I think he was the number one prospect by most people's boards. I personally, as you alluded to, had Stephon Castle number 1. I still would take Stephon Castle as having a better rookie season. So if you were to base it off of just that, I would say Stephon Castle. My reason for Stephon Castle being number 1 before last draft was I saw a world in which he could be a lead guard where you put the ball in his hands, he creates, gets downhill, operates for other people. We talked about this for Trey Johnson. They're different. Trey Johnson's a more skillful scorer than Stephon Castle, but Stephon Castle is forceful, uses his body and athleticism to get to the rim, create, is a better shooter than the numbers advertised at UConn because he was playing a role, and he's an excellent defender. So I like that two-way upside. You can say a lot of the same things for Sarr, but one thing I'll say that goes in Sarr's favor, especially as we do this exercise 5 years from now, Castle is going to be playing alongside likely Dylan Harper, who might even be a better on-ball talent than Castle himself. He's going to be a secondary option no matter what to Victor Wembanyama. And right now there's De'Aaron Fox as well. So I think that may stunt Stephon Castle's growth and does favor Sarr if we were to do this exercise 5 years from now, 10 years from now. And so I think the Wizards have the second best rookie presently and probably the one with the most upside in the future. How do you feel about that assessment?
No, I definitely agree because, again, we're talking about Alex Sarr. He, in a couple of years, could be, maybe even next year, I mean, he's going to have to match Jordan Poole's criteria, but he could be the best player on his team. And Stephon Castle, in his situation, playing alongside with Victor Wembanyama, one of the most highly rated prospects going into the draft. I mean, ever since probably LeBron James, Zion Williamson. So it's going to be hard to try to balance that spotlight. And also you're playing with De'Aaron Fox. Again, you have a top 3 pick, so Dylan Harper, Ace Bailey, whatever you do, it's going to be hard to get your name out there. But I think Stephon Castle is definitely still going to play his role. But I just think upside, I think you have to give it a Sarr. I think the one thing I love to see that I loved about Sarr, and some of the young guys on different NBA teams had that same situation. They just got better, and that's what you want to see from a young guy. Get better. Don't be so hesitant. It's hard, especially on a team that's not winning at all. Like I mentioned, 18 wins, but you're still going out there. You're still fighting. You're still producing. And I think the defensive upside is there. I think he's already a solid rim protector, really good defender. He's only going to get better. I think he definitely needs to put on some muscle. I mean, again, like I always mention it, but it would be awesome to see Kevin Garnett get a workout with him or two. So with Alex Sarr, the pick and rolls, the pick and pops is definitely going to be lethal, especially if Jordan Poole and Bub Carrington, they're going to increase their team chemistry. And overall, this Wizards team, I mean, it's just favoring Alex Sarr to be that number one option. And I can't wait to when he gets that role. And I think he's going to step up when it truly matters.
So here's my one hesitation. I agree with what you said, and I agree with that. He's got the most clear-cut pathway to stardom and being the number one pick here. But tell me if you think this is an unfair assessment. I think Alex Sarr's archetype is similar to that of Chet Holmgren. And Chet Holmgren is the guy I had number 2. The guy I had number 1 was Paolo Banchero. And the reason I had Paolo above Chet, and, time will still tell on this one. Maybe Chet wins a championship this year, and you're like, man, that guy's an anchor, the second best player on that team as an anchor for a team that can win. And he's young in his career, broke his foot his first year, so only has played 2 seasons. Like, you look at that and you say, oh, like maybe that guy is the better player and who you'd want to choose because they win. But the reason I have hesitation of saying Sarr can be the best in the class and why I think that it's unlikely that Chet will be the best in his class, especially because I think Banchero is fantastic, is because it's hard to be the best player in a class when not the top option on the team. And typically, while Sarr is the top option, in my opinion, going forward, I don't think that archetype of being the top option as a scorer typically wins. Like the exception would be Kevin Garnett when he was with the Timberwolves back in the day. And you can make an argument he was a better basketball player than Paul Pierce when he was on the Celtics because he played defense better. But I would say Paul Pierce was their top offensive option. So the primary option, it makes it a little bit more of a nuanced discussion of who's the best player in a class. I think you could say you get the best value out of Sarr, but I think the Wizards then need to win. And if he's their top option as a scorer, I think it's difficult for them to win. So that's why it's important. It's imperative to find a guy to be the star, whether it's next year or from the 6th spot. Say they get Trey Johnson, like we talked about. Say it's Derek Queen, who's a better scorer. I think his value increases tenfold if he's the second option offensively and the first option defensively. So if you were to evaluate a draft, you'd say second O, like 2-0, 1D. Like that's his archetype as opposed to a 1A and 1-0 and 1D. And is that a fair assessment to have hesitancy about him being the best in the class if he's not the top option offensively for a winning team?
Yeah, no, I definitely see where you're coming from, Leif. I think and a lot of NBA teams follow that protocol where the center is a really good player offensively, but there's always a number one option ahead of him. But defensively, he's that rim protector. He's that guy that can change the game, alter the game. And again, it's all going to go back to the Wizards. They're going to have to eventually win games. I mean, Alex Sarr was snubbed from Rookie of the Year finalists, top 3. I think that was crazy, but I think all goes down to winning. And at the end of the day, if you're not winning out there, there's only so much you could do. A lot of people bring up empty calories, but I think once this new regime, how they develop these young guys, I think in a couple of years, winning is going to turn the clock here in DC, and a lot of people are going to start turning heads and say, this young Wizards team, it's kind of like that model that Will Dawkins had in OKC.
That's what he's trying to rebuild. Like I made the pitch yesterday that I thought SGA and Trey aren't too dissimilar. And if you could get a Trey and then he can shift, and speaking of Sarr, he could shift into the Chet Holmgren role. That's what you're building right here. So I love the vision. One guy that's going to have a huge role in the future, whether it's as the star or someone who's running the ship as a supplementary ancillary piece, that's Bub Carrington. We're going to talk about where he's ranked in a redraft. Can he crack the top 10? Because I think he's going to raise a couple spots. I've mentioned how much I love him. Abdullah also enjoys watching Bub Carrington. That and much, much more discussion of a 2024 NBA redraft ahead on Locked On Wizards. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances. Last night, Tyrese Halliburton hit a game-tying shot that bounced above the scoreboard and dropped straight through, and they won in overtime in Madison Square Garden. He gave the Reggie Miller choke sign, and everything was well in the world of basketball unless you're a Knicks fan. But there's highlight-worthy performances like that, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout play, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. I mentioned SGA always scores a lot. We talked about him in comparison, comparing him to Trey Johnson. He scores a lot. If you like that one, take a gander at that. But Andrew Nembhard, not known to be a scorer, he's scoring way more in the playoffs. He's a playoff riser. Find what you like, place the prop bet, and win. And you can even combine live prop bets based on how the action unfolds if you get a sense of the game while it's happening. And if you've got a read on who's heating up, why not back it with a same-game parlay? I love those. So if you're new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. All righty, welcome back to Locked On Wizards. I'm Leif Thulin, joined by Abdullah Ayyubi. We agreed that Alex Sarr right now is either the first or second best rookie, and in the future has the clearest path to being the number one rookie in or number one guy from a 2024 class. A guy that I think can make a jump because he's going to have the ball in his hands a lot is, I think, will run Jordan Poole out of town. That's Bub Carrington. I've been bullish on Bub Carrington since mid last year when he was in college at Pittsburgh. And I started watching him and I said, man, this guy's really good at operating pick and roll, knocks down mid-range jump shots. The three-point shot probably is going to get better because he's got size, he's got passing ability. He had a 4.4 to 1.7 assist to turnover as a rookie on a team that was prone to turning the ball over. He was a bright spot in a 18-win season. Bub Carrington, Abdullah, where do you rank him after just one season in a redraft? How high does Bub Carrington go? And mind you guys, he was the 14th pick last year.
Yeah, so 14, I definitely think is too low for Bub Carrington. I mean, again, like Sarr, he got better every single game. And I think he goes in that top 10, 7 to 8, maybe where Portland drafted Donovan Clingan. The Portland Trailblazers ironically traded Bub Carrington for Denny Avdia. So that was a shocker in itself. And I think Bub, from Baltimore, is a dog, to say the least. ACC product out of Pitt. Again, his mid-range shot, three-point shot is just really, really good. And it's only going to get better. His playmaking is going to be up there as well. He can dime the ball. He can also rebound at a guard at 6'5", can go in there and get more rebounds than 7-footers. That's just something it's hard to get at. And a guy who's willing to go to the best player's defender and go at him and get in his face. And that's only what you see from a young guy, 19, 20 years old. So freaking young here. And he's a dog. And you brought up the fact that you were high on him. And eventually maybe he could take the keys from Jordan Poole and be that number one guy here in DC. So I think 14 is definitely way too low. You got to go at least 3, 4, 5 spots higher because he showed it, man. And to end off the season, a game winner, floater, calling your name, calling your number, saying, give me the ball, move out the way. That's just, he looks like a vet the way he goes out there, the way he portrays himself. So I'm really high on Bub Carrington. I think getting him at 14 was a steal. And a lot of people need to give Will Dawkins credit where credit is due because he is a dog.
Yeah, Bub Carrington is the guy that I think can crack the top 10, maybe even the top 8. So I jotted down some names. So number 1, I had Castle. Number 2, Sarr. Number 3, Reese Uche. No surprise there. Number 4, I had Jared McCain, who went 16th. So that's a steal on the part of the 76ers. Number 5, I had Matas Buzelis, who went 11th. Edie at 6. Numbers 7, 8, and 9, you could tell me any which way. Reed Shepherd hasn't proven it yet, but there's a lot of people who still are very high on him because he was on a number 2 seed Rockets and he didn't get to display it. So someone between Reed Shepard, Jalen Wells, who had an excellent season, ended up breaking his wrist though, but he's kind of a plug and play guy. I see far more upside with Carrington, and then there's Carrington. So I have him somewhere between 7 and 9 after one season, and I think after more than one season, he could crack the top 5, top 6 probably for Bub Carrington, because he's a guy that you put the ball in his hands and good things happen. He can score for himself. His shooting percentages are only going to improve, in my opinion. His assist to turnover, I've referenced already, I think is very good for a rookie. You don't see too many rookies on a team as turnover prone in a situation where they're losing is what happened in Washington. Have a turnover, assist to turnover that positive and create for other players. Bub Carrington, like you said, called his own number at the end of the season, hit a game-winning shot that was ridiculously difficult. He puts players in good positions to succeed. I see him as the operator of the future, unless they get a guy like Darren Peterson in the draft, in the 2026 draft. So after 1 year, I've got him somewhere between 7 through 9. How high do you have him if you're projecting through 5 years? Maybe you don't see him displacing Jordan Poole like I do, but whatever the vision is for you as a Wizards fan, what do you see as his upside? Because obviously you're already pretty content with the top 10 version of Bub Carrington, getting him at 14. What do you think his ceiling is, or what do you project through 5 years if we were to do this exercise 5 years from now?
I really think, Leif, that he could crack that top 5 range. I think Stephon Castle's going to have the better career, but again, I wouldn't be surprised if Bub, like a couple years from now, I was like, hey, how did he not go top 5? I just think, again, like the way he carries himself out there as such a young guy, and you look at the way he is. I mean, a lot of people are like, how is he not a veteran? This is his first year. It's just amazing. And I think his ability to score at will, I mean, he's very, very crafty, very, very shifty. It's hard to get a guy like that, and he's only going to get better. And that's what's so great about this. There's just 1 year, his rookie year, and this is just the beginning of something special. And if you're the Wizards, you really got a combo guard, a guy who can definitely take the keys from Jordan Poole. I wouldn't be surprised if he does. I'm a big JP13 fan, but again, Bub Carrington's way younger than JP, and if JP's value is there, you want to trade him for some draft capital, or maybe that player that you desperately want to maybe get that wing. Who knows? It is what it is. There are a lot of options for this Wizards team. Will Dawkins, we've seen it last year. You traded Denny Avdia for Bub Carrington, and that's the one thing I want to harp on, because a lot of people are giving him hate, saying that why do you trade Denny Avdia? A lot of people were saying that he was going to be the one to take the keys in DC and be that number 1 guy. Turbo, I think that was his nickname. And Bub Carrington, man, for me, I want to say win-win, but in a couple of years, you're going to have to give that the Wizards won that trade.
See, that's a bold take, though, because Denny had the best season he's ever had. At one point, he put up numbers where he was scoring 20-plus, 10-plus boards, a couple assists, and at very high efficiency. So for Bub to even make it a possibility to draw even in that trade, much less win it, is a sincere, very, very good trade by both. Like, the Blazers front office has been criticized for different picks throughout the years. The Wizards have certainly been criticized with the picking of Johnny Davis. You take some of these guys. Denny, for a couple of years, looked like a poor pick, and then he started ramping up a little bit in the final year, and then he was traded, and now he had the good year. So Bub Carrington, I think he's got top 5 potential as well. I'm very curious to see if he takes the reins. The last thing I want to mention about Bub Carrington is, typically I'm not the biggest proponent of talking about how young a player is or how old they are in a draft. I don't think it matters as much as some do, but I do think at the point guard position in the NBA, there's just a learning curve at the point guard position that isn't there at other positions, because you have to run the offense, you have to balance scoring and passing, and many of these players haven't had to care too much about doing both. Many of these players throughout their entire life said, you know what, I can score 50 anytime I want to roll out of bed in high school. And then in college, they can be the best player on a team. Their team might not be particularly good. And it's like, oh, I'll get mine. I'll make some right passes. The scouts will evaluate it, but they're really going to look at my talent. For the first time, he's been on an even playing field, probably disadvantaged because of, maturation matters. Athleticism matters in the NBA because these are grown men that have those same requisite skills. And yet he still played at his own pace and played admirably. So I'm very high on Bub Carrington. The last rookie we're going to talk about is Kyshawn George. I'm curious to see where he goes in this one, because he went 24th in last year's draft. That was a questionable pick. Many people said, oh, he's old for a freshman. He's slow-footed. His shot has a tremendous arc on it, but, it's a little inconsistent at times. Yet the reviews were all positive about Kyshawn George. So where does he go in a 2024 redraft happening just 1 year later? And then we evaluate and project for 5 years forward and just discuss how much of a crapshoot the draft is and how impressive it is that the Wizards have gotten 2 guys that have moved up and probably a third coming your way straight ahead on Locked On Wizards. Welcome back to Locked On Wizards. I'm Leif Thulin, joined by Abdullah Ayubi. So we talked about Sarr as possible number one 5 years from now, 1 or 2 after 1 year. Talked about top 10 Bub Carrington after 1 year, possible top 5 after 5 years. We'll see what happens. Take me through your thought process on Kyshawn George and actually enlighten me to what you thought of him as a draft pick. When he was picked 24th, were you a fan of the pick? And then what was your expectation going into the season, and how did it change throughout the season?
Yeah, so with Kyshawn, also from the ACC, shout out to the U. Really didn't think much of him. I thought out of all three of those guys, he's the one that's probably going to be demoted to the G League. Probably it'll take some time for him to get adjusted to today's NBA game. And at first, I was thinking like the first couple of games, that first couple of stretch of the season, you gotta take him to the Capital City Go-Go. The Capital City Go-Go has developed some key guys, and Justin Champagnie, and there was some Jordan Goodwin, some other guys, Jared Butler. So I was thinking that, but then eventually he just turned the corner, and I mean, 3-point sniper, and the emergence of him is a big reason why I think Corey Kispert is 1 foot out the door. I keep mentioning it. I think a guy like him at his size, 6'8", 6'9", 6'7". I mean, I'll mention that Denver Nuggets game with Alex Sarr having that career high, but he hit some clutch shots in that game, and throughout the season also got better. I think that's the key theme about these three young guys that we have here in Washington, is that they got better throughout the season. And that's what you want to see from a guy who was considered slow-footed, but again, a really, really, really good defender with his size and length, can get in the passing lane, get steals, can get blocks. I think he can definitely guard 1 through 3, 1 through 4. And it's just something that versatility. That's the name of the game. I mentioned rebounding and assisting with Bub Carrington, Alex Sarr being offensively great, defensively can be great as well. But Kyshawn George, it goes back to versatility and how Will Dawkins wants his model to be like what he did in OKC. And you get a guy in Kyshawn who, I mean, again, he can shoot it from 3. One thing I will say that he needs to improve on is relying too much on that 3-point shot. You got to go into the lane. You got to take it to the hole. I think he'll definitely get better at that. You don't want to be too stuck up on settling for 3-pointers. And if you're the Wizards 5 years from now, the fact that you got him at 24, I think it's a steal. I think he's going to be a key contributor on this team. I think definitely he should have gone higher than 20. I think that maybe 15 to 17 range potentially. But again, this all goes back to you hit on all 3 draft picks in a weak draft, considered weak draft class. And it's funny because we talked about for a while that he and Bub Carrington and Alex Sarr don't think this is a weak draft class because they're the ones that are going to be key contributors down the line when the Wizards eventually host that trophy.
Yeah, and that's the interesting part, is that this was probably the weakest draft class since Anthony Bennett in 2013 was picked. In that draft class, you found some guys like Giannis at 15 and Rudy Gobert at 27 that are torchbearers. However, there aren't obvious all-stars in this draft. I think Sarr's got a chance. I think Castle's got a chance. And that's kind of where I draw the line of like those guys can be all-stars. Other ones might surprise me. I could see it, but that's where it's interesting because in this draft class, we've talked about some guys. If he's 15, 17, that means there's 15 guys that are role players for solid basketball teams. Like the Wizards have a foundation now. They have good players because of hitting on this on 3 out of 3 picks in this draft class. And typically when you draft after 10, and especially after 15, you get into the 20s and you draft a player, it's unlikely that they're rotational pieces. Like when you draft 10 to 15, it's still more likely than not that they're rotational. Well, after 15, you draft a player, they're typically not rotational pieces for longer than 3-4 years in the NBA. I see Kyshawn George as such. I think Bub Carrington is going to be a starter in this team. And I think Alex Sarr has got a chance of being an all-star. Like that is an exceptional hit rate in what was a weak draft. Like it wasn't just perceived to be a weak draft. I think there was no stars that shine through as torchbearers of this class. And then the Wizards may have the best one in that. They may have a point guard that can start in the future and may have a coveted 3-and-D who is not just good at one of those things. He's pretty good at both. And so the Wizards got to be feeling optimistic. What do you think Kyshawn George's role is going forward? I know we're talking about 3-and-D, but do you think he ever starts for the Wizards? Or do you think he's more of a 6th, 7th man guy on a team that does make the play and makes the playoffs in a couple seasons?
I think for me, you can definitely see that role, the 6-man role, coming in, knocking down threes, being that key defender that the Wizards desperately need. And again, you pair him up with a guy like Bilal Coulibaly. I mean, you got versatility. Hopefully, Bilal hits that year 3 offensive emergence. But I think if injury happens, knocking on wood here, but I think Kyshawn can step in and be that guy that can step up when it truly matters. Again, making clutch shots in the clutch. He did it in his rookie year. And he's only going to get better. And I think he's definitely going to – his usage needs to go up. And this goes back to Alex Sarr and Bub Carrington. I think a big reason why Kyshawn George's first half compared to second half, it goes back to, having veterans like Kyle Kuzma on this team. You want the vets to increase the trade value of these vets, but also you want to balance it with these young guys. But now it's all about the youth movement. It's all about making sure that these guys are developing. And I think Kyshawn George in a couple of years is going to be that guy that's going to get better. And just a lot of people are going to be scratching their heads saying, how did he go as far as 24?
Yeah, and I think the thing that was appealing to me as a fan of Kyshawn George in the draft, I wasn't as high on him as I was Bub Carrington, but I think I was higher than the consensus on Kyshawn. Kyshawn was a guy that at Miami played with the ball in his hands, was the operator of pick and rolls. He's a guy who could go inside and out, shot a ton of threes. The numbers weren't particularly pretty, but you could see the stroke. I was there at the combine, watched him knock down a bunch of threes with a super high arcing shot, which is always something I'm a fan of. I thought, hey, this guy's 6'8". Even if he's not the most fleet of foot, I watched Joe Ingles be a very good defender in the playoffs, and he's very slow. Like sometimes intangibles, intelligence, and versatility really matter. So versatility is easily helped by being tremendously athletic. Like you can guard more positions if you're a very good athlete. But sometimes basketball IQ and intangibles are underrated. And I thought Kyshawn George had that in spades. He demonstrated that, and he showed his versatility of being someone who can handle some ball handling responsibility, someone who can knock down open shots, and someone who can defend a few different multiple positions. I think there's a world in which he cracks the top 15 of this draft class, and the Wizards have 3 guys within the top 15 of the draft class.
Yeah, man. I mean, again, like I think a big reason why was just, again, opportunities and the fact that in his rookie year, he's proving why he should be the guy, and he's the shooter of this team, and why Corey Kispert, again, like I mentioned, he got that contract, but you have a young guy in Kyshawn George who's bigger than him, stronger than him, faster than him, and at one point maybe he can be a better three-point shooter than him. So, again, it's versatility. That's the name of the game. And the Wizards, man, hitting on all 3 really, really is great to see. And also, we haven't talked about him, but AJ Johnson is a guy that a lot of people aren't talking about. You traded him. You get him from Milwaukee. You swap him for Kyle Kuzma. And Kyle, the fact that you get that value at such a young guy. Yeah, Kyshawn, again, that's a guy that top 15 at 24. It's great to see. And, again, you hit on a weak draft class, all 3 draft picks. I love him, man. I love it. And also, we didn't talk about him, but AJ Johnson, you get him from Milwaukee, a first-round pick. I think he went early 20s.
23rd.
So right before Kyshawn George and AJ Johnson, you trade him for Kyle Kuzma, and Kyle Kuzma at his value at the time was really, really low. And you get a guy like AJ Johnson who could be that 6-man role, who is so athletic, so balanced. You talked about seeing him in the combine at 6'5" and has a tight handle. And there were moments down the stretch of this season when he was given playing time. He was out there producing, especially in key moments. So, again, so much of the youth movement, and I love to see it, man, as a Wizards fan. We haven't had this in so long.
Yeah, and there's a world in which he moves up because his whole appeal to draft community was he's 160 pounds soaking wet, jumps out of the gym, plays hard, has played point guard and 2 guard in his life. And you can just see if you can mold the wet ball of clay into something. And I'd say at this rate, you would have expected less. You would have expected more G League time and fewer NBA minutes from him. So honestly, that's a success too. I'm not as confident in saying that he's going to be a top 15 player in this class as I am the others, because they had more defined roles. They had more established success. But like, there's a real world in which his potential is further away from where he's at right now, which bodes well because he's already been in the NBA and established good film. Like, it's not all good, especially on an 18-win team, but there's some good film. Do you think there's any world in which he ends up a better player than either Bub or Kyshawn? And honestly, if that does happen, you're probably happy, because that's a good problem to have a question of which of those guards is better.
Yeah, it's crazy to think about, because I don't know about better than Bub. Kyshawn potentially, maybe, if AJ Johnson gets better offensively. But again, like, this is a great problem to have. I mean, before last year, before this draft, it was like the Wizards don't have any talent at all. But now with all this young talent, it might become a problem. And then eventually you think about making that Donovan Mitchell-like move. A lot of people I saw in the comment section saying that the Wizards should trade for Donovan Mitchell. I was talking about Donovan Mitchell. I was saying a Donovan Mitchell trade where you get a lot of young guys and trade for that superstar, that guy that can get you over the hump and compete in the Eastern Conference. So with all these young guys, and you also have Justin Champagnie, Tristan Vucevic, it's amazing, Leif. I mean, again, if you told me that the Wizards would have an abundance of talent, I wouldn't believe you. Young talent.
I mean, it's a good problem to have. So final question for you here. You watched the success of this past draft. It's hard to emulate because the draft is a crapshoot. Like there's a reason that these are success stories that they're drafting ahead, because people that were drafted ahead of those guys did not pan out as well. Does it have any overlying tales that you want to emulate this upcoming season? You look at picks, you look at the 2 picks the Wizards have. Are there any picks that stand out to you and you say, okay, I need to get these type of players because these are the ones that stick out, and in the last year going 3 of 3, potentially 4 of 4, despite the Milwaukee having being the team that took AJ Johnson?
Yeah, I think going back to what I mentioned earlier, I think versatility at pick 6, at pick 18, I got that right. But I think you can definitely make a case of you want that need, but also best player available, but also some guy that can do it all. You don't want, and again, a big reason why I'm not as high as on Knipple, just because, I mean, again, offensively, you can shoot it from 3, stepped up in key moments, but I think defensively is where I want to see also guys make an impact in this upcoming draft class. And you saw in all 3 of these young guys in Kyshawn, Alex Sarr, and Bub Carrington, and I think that's what Will Dawkins wants to emulate, this theme of can you do a lot of everything, and that's what we want to see. And I think that's going to be a key factor in drafting pick number 6 and pick number 18. Who knows? Maybe you do what you did last year and trade up into the first round, trade back. There's so many options. You have so many second round picks. You got pick swaps from Phoenix. I mean, it's a great problem to have when you have these many options, because it opens up the playing field. And if you're a GM at Will Dawkins, you want to make sure that you get as many young talent as you can to eventually develop all of them, and then eventually trade them, or they're going to be key contributors to when you win that championship here in DC.
Absolutely. The Wizards had a great draft in 2024, as we demonstrated here. Hopefully a great draft in 2025. We'll talk about more of those prospects coming up next week. As Abdullah mentioned in a previous episode, we're now on Twitter. Engage with us, Locked On Wizards, and we're also on there, just our individual accounts. So please engage with us, and thank you guys for making Locked On Wizards your first listen today. For your second listen, check out Locked On NBA Game Night. Every game, every night until an NBA champion is crowned. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find NBA Game Night on Locked On NBA on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. And we'll be back with you next week. Really appreciate your guys' support.